As you come here last Monday, we're talking about the Steelers draft prospects that were visiting last week. And we're also getting to a few other stuff as far as with the Steelers offseason. And right now, one of the things I ended off last week was with the Steelers seeing like how many games they would be able to win in the AFC North versus the Browns, being potentially the top two teams in the AFC North. The Ravens being 8.5 and the Bengals finishing about 6. Well, right now on tonight's podcast, we're getting ready to go. If anyone's been sleeping under a rock, which I doubt, but I'm sure everyone's heard by now, Antonio Brown right now, as of yesterday, was getting into it with some person on Twitter, Steeler Steve, was posting about Juju Smith-Schuster being 2018 team MVP. And obviously, as you heard, Antonio Brown definitely was a little bit incensed, as you could imagine, just being a little bit aggravated. Just been nothing but just little lashing out. And here's what he had to say right here. He said, emotion. Boy fumbled the whole postseason, the biggest game of the year. Everyone went blind too easy, making guys famous. Not enough reality these days. By the way, check the list. End quote. And as you can tell right there, he was just definitely not a happy camper right now, as you could definitely imagine. This is an enraged man right now who just doesn't seem to want to let go of old baggage, as he is with the Oakland Raiders. Obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster got wind of this, and how did he respond? He just basically just went out and said, hey, you know what, this is a guy who I admired. He's been admiring this guy, obviously, for more than the last 3 years, especially when he was in his playing days at USC. Even in 2015, he reached out to him, thought he was the best in the world, wanted to get some advice, like how he could take his game to the next level. This is while he was still playing with the Trojans. And of course, as you think about it right now, all the years later, and when you saw how Antonio Brown was getting double teamed in the offense and everything, it just seems like I don't know if Antonio Brown was thinking that, I may have been here at this point in time, but it's like I almost seem like I'm being forgotten when you have a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster for the last 2 seasons who's been helping out tremendously on the Steelers team. Of course, a lot of people will definitely pick at it either way and look at a guy like Antonio Brown and probably think, is this guy starting to become like a selfish teammate or whatever, a selfish player? Just seems like he's being more ungrateful. I just don't see where this is too much of a big deal. When people look back earlier in time, is it any different when a guy like Brett Favre back in his career, when his career was getting ready to end ugly with the Packers, who was not making up his mind, by the way, if he was going to be calling the career and hanging up the cleats and moving on. Instead, he kept a lot of people guessing within the Packers organization. You had a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who was on there for 3 straight years playing behind him. And what ends up happening after the 2007 season, they lose to the Giants in the NFC Championship game after having a magical season, which could probably saw a Super Bowl where Brett Favre had another chance to go fly off into the sunset. But instead, what ends up happening was that he was definitely could not make up his mind. It did do a temporary retirement, but then a few months later in the summer, he decides to say, you know what, I kind of changed my mind. I'm coming back. Expects things to be funky-dory with Packerland, but ends up saying at that, as things come to turn around, was that they already got their man Aaron Rodgers. Smart move, by the way, as they move forward. I'm almost starting to wonder if that's kind of like how you think of it, like what a guy with Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, which is a totally different set of circumstances. But what I'm just saying is it just more where it's like you poured your heart and soul out for this team for the last few years. You you put it out there, you put your body on the line for this team. Definitely been the number one wide receiver. I mean, when you really think about things, for the last four straight, almost 5 seasons, ever since taking the mantle from your last teammate who was there, who should have been signed, Mike Wallace. And then, of course, amongst your playing peers at that time, Megatron, Calvin Johnson. So we definitely got some interesting stuff to get up here on this show tonight on the Matt Steel podcast. Also, believe it or not, ironically, there's love being shown between James Conner to Le'Veon Bell ever since getting his new deal. Doesn't seem to be any hard feelings at all. Go figure that. Why isn't that way with the receivers? Anyway, if you want to get in and join the show today on the Matt Steel podcast, the studio numbers to dial in here is 312-209-2232. Again, that's 312-209-2232. Otherwise, you can hit me up at Project Richie on Twitter. You can also check me out right now. I'm streaming live on Instagram. You can find that Men of Steel Nation. That's all lowercase. And you can also check out my YouTube page, Men of Steel Podcast. But for Facebook Live, if you want to feel free and join in on the live stream, it's at Men of Steel Nation. Usually Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Not so much during the off season, where it's Mondays and Wednesdays. It will either be Monday or Wednesday. I'll keep you guys posted. But anyway, we're getting a little bit more closer to the draft in a few more weeks. And I know I just want to apologize to everybody right now. My voice right now, if I just sound a little funny, just kind of draining off a little bit of a cold. But other than that, things are going well right now. Hope everyone in here, aside from me, is enjoying this beautiful weather we had lately in Chicago. Really starting to feel like spring. Some nice, cozy, warm weather. Just a little bit snug, but not too bad. Also, too, speaking of which, later on with James Conner, we're going to get into, do you guys buy or sell that he will be able to match or eclipse his 12 rushing touchdowns in 13 games he had last year? We'll get to that a little bit later on. And then last but not least, I have the latest draft prospects that came to visit the Steelers. And the good news is it is on defense. Again, number to dial in, once again, it's 312-209-2232. Again, that's 312-209-2232. Hit me up on Twitter at Project Richie. And you can also catch me on CSR on Saturdays from 1 to 2 p.m. My other show is on deck. Excuse me one second. Sorry about that, guys. But, yeah, and that's where we're at right now. But I'll be honest with you, just to go back with, like I said, Antonio Brown, I mean, what else can you expect right now? I mean, he's definitely got his happiness. There's been a lot of people as of late in the media world right now on television. The biggest outlets were Go Like a Wingo, First Take. You also got Undisputed, Rich Eisen's show. And, you know, when you think of guys like when Shan Sharp and Ryan Clark, and you look at it, you start to wonder, like, this is a guy they need to consider letting go when they say this, like, 2-3 years ago. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, when you flash back about a few months ago, Ben Roethlisberger definitely seemed to be one of the biggest headaches on his team, and deservedly so in most aspects. This guy, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, when you really think of things, he was a guy who hardly had any dog in the fight to, like, have anybody support him as far as, you know, coming to his defense as being a good, not only a good teammate, but a good leader. And you figure a lot of things like, what did he do wrong other than the fact when you were responsible for probably like getting in the way of costing 2 of your stars to exit off your team, one of them due to trying to get a long-term contract, who was franchise tagged for 2 straight years in Le'Veon Bell. And then not only that, Antonio Brown not experienced any happiness or personal reaching out to you with his teammates from Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, if I'm Antonio Brown right now, listen, you do have a right to vent off your chest a little bit. But at the same time, too, when I really look at all in all for all this, at some point you have to learn to put this away. And again, I think it's valid that people are bringing this up. I mean, you're also one of the people who is allowing a guy like Vontaze Burfict onto your team, and you see him like back on there. I mean, like somehow with you on the team. I think that one was just like a little bit of a questionable one. This is the same guy who actually knocked you out during the playoffs about a few years ago, and you wonder what it was. I think for right now, when you think about it, it just. But Antonio Brown, I think he's just thinking in his mindset. He's built up a lot of stuff in his career. Obviously, he had the scratch and claws way. Obviously, I mean, with his situation, of course, I mean, especially himself. I mean, of course, being a black athlete and then just growing up through like the struggles, as a lot of us could have a hard time understanding, including myself. But when you make it and be as successful as you are as the guy, I think you feel like a lot of pressure. Like you don't want things being taken away from you. It's like you really gotta be a little bit more focused. You're just trying to be better, just trying to elevate and be the best that you could be, and that people demand from you. And I just feel it's been a little of a funkier version of him, unfortunately. I don't want to put my emotions too much into it as I'm trying to cover this team, but I will say this. Antonio Brown, either way, at the end of the day, look, Ben Roethlisberger is definitely not absolved from any wrongdoing. He's definitely had rubbed things the wrong way, if you ask me. And I definitely feel right now for a guy like Roethlisberger, he needs to just definitely feel that right now at this point in time, where do you start to do things as your leader of your group? And that's why I feel like right now where he's got to like just think things through. How do I become a better leader, and how I keep myself as well as like out of the news and try and do this. I mean, basically the only thing you can do right now is move forward at this point in time. I definitely feel that. I definitely feel right now. I mean, believe it or not, despite all this crazy criticism that has been surrounding this team, you're still being favored as one of the top teams to come out of the division. Why is that? Is it really truly because they got back like the good old days, like the team that they finally people come to know and expect them for long-term standing history, that they are like family oriented? I mean, how do you repair that? I mean, there was definitely a lot of damage to repair here. Let's not kid ourselves. But I think at some point where you start hearing the little whispers and reports, also too. I mean, look what Ben Roethlisberger. Listen, the guy got married. What was it like 6, 7 years ago? He was getting his personal life together. Of course, he had the rape allegations after he, like right around the time when he was getting ready to, or right after he won his last Super Bowl, which apparently, lucky for him, he wasn't found guilty on that. But he was slowly starting to like clean his life together, and he had some little headbutting with some people as far as like how be a better leader in the locker room. That just people were not vibing with. So I definitely feel like right now, when you really think about it, I definitely will say this, that Ben, even for himself, had started to come back even in the darkest hours about when he was doing the radio show thing. That was one of the things I covered last week. We started off the Men's Steel podcast from last Monday's show. We started to ponder like how much that was going to be a big benefit for him. And I could definitely see where it could help a little bit, but I'm not sure if it's going to necessarily be like the whole solution overall. So again, I want you to feel free to just tweet me your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to hit the like button right here. Again, it's 312-209-2232. Again, that's 312-209-2232 as we are just getting started here on this nice Monday afternoon. I'm just going to just say this at the end of the day for right now. Juju Smith-Schuster, I don't think you're looking all that much better either by responding. If I were you, if I'm Juju, and I love Juju, he's done nothing wrong in this regard right now. Obviously, Antonio Brown's just venting out some feelings, but if I'm Juju Smith-Schuster, I pull him aside and just say, you know what? Do yourself a favor. Whatever's going on with former teammates, don't worry about responding. You don't need to be distracted. If you're him and the Steelers, you need to just concentrate his mind on continuing to be better and elevate to the next level. While he's going to definitely be Ben's primary target, along with a guy with when you got Moncrief and James Washington on here. And plus, you're going to be about the services of Jesse James. And let's face it, too. Ben Roethlisberger still needs a security blanket and tight end, which is something that cannot be overlooked right here as we go into this. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next topic here as we on the Men of Steel podcast here. Again, you can hit the Facebook page at Men of Steel Nation. Find me on Instagram, too, the Men of Steel podcast. That's Men of Steel Nation. On Facebook, it's at Men of Steel Nation, capital M, capital S. And check out the YouTube page as we're live at Men of Steel Nation. Also, too, we're looking at James Conner. It seems like how the shoe seems to be like on the other foot right now when you're looking at a guy like James Conner. Why is it that he's not having a outlashing from a guy like Le'Veon Bell? And I will say that. I mean, listen, was it frustrating watching him sit out last season? We understand why now. I mean, as fans, a lot of people were definitely upset and frustrated and bewildered. Like, why would you allow this to happen to your team, not be out there with your teammates, and you're just sitting back here? I'm not sure about that, but I will say this. You have to look at from this point is that I think that Le'Veon Bell, he has been a team player when he was playing on that team. He's definitely kept himself a little bit better. Obviously, he's had keeping his body out from being injury prone. He had a little bit off-field instances where he had suspension for not making a drug test, whatever. He wasn't proven to be failed or anything like that. But he also did just like not report technically at the end of the day. I think that was just a little bit concerning at that point in time. But anyway, James Conner, who definitely comes out here on this team, does a phenomenal job filling in for Le'Veon Bell when you look at it. And he was unfortunately got hurt last season, right around the time I guess the Chargers game. But really, his season really started to down spiral little by little when he got a concussion against the Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football. And up until that point, he was definitely on a monstrous tear. When you think about it, he had about four straight games of 100-plus yards rushing. And he was definitely racked up the all-around yards overall, the scrimmage yards. He was definitely like in the top 3 at that point in time. And what ends up happening after he got injured, he struggled against Jacksonville, had a drop pass late in the game. and then slow down against Denver. Then he got his, I think it was his leg or his knee, I forget which one, injured against Chargers on Sunday Night Football. And he was out for a significant amount of games, which saw him miss the Raiders, Patriots, and Saints game. Missed three straight games and was able to come back for the finale of the regular season. So I'm going to just say this right now about James Conner. Love the admiration and respect they have for one another right there. No doubt about it. I mean, this was pretty much when you think about everything on social media, how he just basically just told Le'Veon Bell he had nothing but positive vibes for him as he was able to get his money. Le'Veon Bell was so touched by it. As a matter of fact, here we go. Said, I don't really share texts that often, but I had to make an exception. And this was James Conner's tweet, his message to Le'Veon Bell. What's up, bro? Just reaching out. Social media got dudes acting crazy and got me thinking. You was always a real one. Never talked bad about nobody and was always solid. I appreciate that. Congrats on the new deal. You weathered the storm and came out stronger, like you always say. All positive vibes. Do your thing, brother. End quote. I thought that was very classy of a guy like James Conner right there. I mean, no doubt about it. This guy right here who's just trying to find nothing to do better, but just to improve and get to that next level, just like a James Conner. Very thankful to have him on the team and see how he's doing. But other than that, yeah, I definitely feel right now it's definitely been a thing where you had concerns as far as where was this leading to when you really start to look at it. I mean, is it just more of a thing where you start to look at, was Le'Veon Bell really not all that bad as people thought, except that he was just a guy who was just doing business. Maybe it looked shady in fans' eyes from an emotional standpoint. You weren't there, but you were just a guy just trying to get your money. And if they would have signed him, this probably wouldn't have been blown out of proportion. He'll probably still struggle the first couple of games. He'll probably I wouldn't put it past him if he would have done the same thing like he did like the previous season, 2017, where he would not attend most of the training camp or preseason games and just try and get his body ready enough for the regular season. I wouldn't have put it past him if he would have tried that on there. But I will say this. It's definitely a time for a new chapter to be written right now. And just like I said, I just want to say thank you to Le'Veon Bell. You did your services here in Pittsburgh. I mean, when you really think about it, for 5 miraculous seasons, unfortunately, it wasn't enough to help deliver a ring, but that could be argued at another point, another time. But I will say this. It's going to be hard trying to find a guy like Le'Veon Bell's replacement. We don't know the answer with James Conner. And the reason why I'm bringing up the times where he had the injuries and stuff, and to answer the question about him gaining 12, 13 yards, I'm going to say yes. Because we're not too sure how Juju Smith-Schuster is going to fare without Antonio Brown right now. Do you have Moncrief be that guy to help alleviate those double teams, and Juju does get freed up and he's able to get going? And where like Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be more of a consistent target as well as Conner. So I think because Juju is going to probably be expected to be struggle, but I think he's going to do all right. I think he's going to perform phenomenal eventually at the end of the day. The only bend the way he likes to force his passes in there. He's a gunslinger. He likes to keep doing it. But I don't see why it would be that much different when you really see about it as far as over here. So I'll definitely say yes. I think he will definitely match it. I'll give him like 13, maybe 14 rushing touchdowns. But he's definitely going to have like a monster year I think as long as he stays healthy. But the only part I'm just going to caution you on is just the mental aspect of the game. Remember, we have not seen that bad to the bone, killer instinct mentality where he was just scorching people for those 4 straight games when they were on their streak. That's something to pay attention to right there. How is he mentally and physically? Is he a little bit intimidated anymore? That's the only thing I would definitely say in that regard. Keep that in mind, Steel Nation, as we're looking at right now. I know we got like the NCAA championship game happening between Texas Tech and Virginia. Not sure what people are having you on that game, but I'll go with Virginia tonight. Not to go off topic here, but I know we got that happening. Definitely going to be getting back in touch with Brian Diaro, 247 Sports. Just reached out to him earlier today. Hopefully, we should be able to get back and do a podcast here this week. But definitely, we're trying to have something brewing together in the next couple of weeks. Do a little preview on the week of the draft, either Monday or Wednesday, the 22nd or the 24th, on the Mass Steel podcast. And as we go a little bit further here, also too, next topic as we get ready to move on here. One of the guys that people were looking at was Marlon Mack and Quentin Flowers. Not Marlon Mack, excuse me. I meant for Dearness Johnson. He's a free agent running back right now. He was part of the AAF, who right now they are temporarily suspended right now as operations of football. It's really kind of sucked a little bit. This is a guy who played 4 seasons at South Florida, and his career average of rushing was 4.3 yards, which is pretty solid. He didn't really play much games, so I would say he was probably like a backup, but he had like about averaging 12.5 yards reception yards. And one of the things that was quoted about this guy, about Dearness Johnson, that despite the fact that Marlon Mack and Quentin Flowers on his team at USF, Johnson was the unsung hero of that team. Whereas a runner, receiver, return man, Johnson was a threat to score every time he touched the ball. His intelligence, instincts, and understanding the scheme was a perfect complement to his vision, explosiveness, and agility. End quote. To be honest, if you're a Steeler fan right there, I like what I saw with James Conner. Jalen Samuels is still a little bit of a question mark. Remember, this guy was also rated as an A- prospect last preseason. The only thing that I have a red flag with a guy like Jalen Samuels is that there's only 100-yard rushing performance ever in his lifetime. It was against the Patriots. I'm not saying he can't get better. I'm not saying he can't improve. He's a decent back. Great prospect. But again, this is the reality of Steelers fans need to sink in. You're without the services of the best back. At the end of the day, you could look at James Conner till you're blue in the face. Remember, you're without Le'Veon Bell. You're always going to be reminded of that. James Conner has still got quite the shoes to fill. I like the averages he's been making versus like Le'Veon Bell, as comparatively the first couple of seasons. But at the same time, too, it's not over for him just yet. I definitely feel right now, as far as what the Steelers are concerned, you got to definitely continue like keep an all-in game plan to keep this unit together. It'll definitely be an issue on, but where do you guys think right now, as we're doing this podcast? Feel free to leave me a comment or like a comment if you can in the next few minutes or two. We're going to go on here for like about another 5 more minutes before we get ready to cut off. What do you guys think? Where do you guys anticipate at the Steelers? I know they need a lot more defense. Definitely, you had quarterback prospects visiting the the team facility, as reported by Bob Labriola of Steelers.com. But the running back, if they do get running back, where do you think more than likely they'll select one? 4th, 5th, or 6th, 7th rounds? Again, tweet me at Prodigy Richie. And you also feel free to leave your comments on the Facebook page at Men of Steel Nation. You'll find the Men of Steel podcast page right there. And you see my contact info. Feel free to hit me up anytime. Tweet me your thoughts on Twitter at Prodigy Richie. Check out the Instagram feed as we're still live on there. Men of Steel Nation. And feel free to check out the YouTube channel, Men of Steel Podcast. So this is where it was. Bob Labriola and also Jordan Reed, too, of NFL draft writer. And he can be followed at J Reed NFL. He says the Steelers doing a lot of homework on quarterbacks Byron Murphy and DeAndre Baker as they are in Pittsburgh today and tomorrow for a pre-draft visit. Those are top 2 prospects right there. I know a lot has been said of a guy like Greedy Williams as far as being the guy that Steelers should get. I like Greedy. Don't get me wrong. I think that's an awesome name. It's like Savage on there, too. I mean, that's an awesome name to have for, like, a football player. Almost sounds like a character in the name when you really think about it. But when you look at it, like, right here, when you look at the corners that are coming into this draft, and I got this from Walter Football, here's the difference between, like, a guy like, say, DeAndre Baker and Byron Murphy. When you look at, like, their realistic breakdown comparisons, it almost seems like for right there that if I were to guess, I would say Byron Murphy could probably like tackle guys down the field because he's got tackles for loss, and he could also sack. But his average interception return yards are neck and neck with DeAndre Baker. DeAndre Baker, remember, he's out of Georgia. Murphy is out of Washington for the SEC and Pac-12. But the biggest thing about them, when you look at their prospect grades and everything, the thing I like about both of them, that you can't go wrong with either one, should become instant starters. I'll tell you what, I'm fine if they decide to elect to go with a cornerback as their first pick versus an inside linebacker. I know a lot of people are still screaming for that, which is very understandable. But at the same time, too, I mean, their rushing defense not really that much of a dip when you really look at it. I mean, this is a team right here who at the time was still be able to match in like top 5 when you really look at their defense. I mean, yeah, they started off sloppy. I mean, they were getting scorched by teams like the Chiefs. I mean, even somewhat the Browns when you had those 2 quarterbacks in there to start off the season. But when you really think about it and you look at where they're at, a lot of people were feeling the instant, immediate impact without Ryan Shazier. Look at guys like unsung heroes like John Bostic, Vince Williams, I mean, who did a phenomenal job. I mean, check this out. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, at the end of the day, were 6th in that run category. Shazier was definitely special for. Which, by the way, I just want to continue to say right now, Shay Leave. I mean, just do like a little workout where he's hopping off like a little mat. I forget what they call it, but I don't know. All I can say is just continue to pray for that man. He's able to just get himself more healthy first and foremost, and and if he just be more stable than anything. Last thing I want to see is something happen to him where he ends out to like throw his career, I mean his life out the window, but it's time to come back and having something worse happen to him. It's just really, I'm not sure how I would say it, but I definitely will say this. I do believe this guy is not done yet. Obviously, he's not going to be playing this season, but his determination and this strength and this spirit is definitely feeding through for that defense. So, again, back to the corners. I'll say realistically, they're going to probably end up. I'm not sure they're going to get to the corners, but it'll probably be, I'll say, Greedy Williams out of LSU, or it'll be Julian Love out of Notre Dame. And that'll be my thoughts. Because we'll see. But with the linebacker, I know a lot of people feel like they're putting their eggs in one basket, but I'll be honest, I won't be surprised they even end up with a guy like Mac Wilson if they get someone from Alabama, SEC. So keep eyes on things like that. And that's going to do it to the end for this edition of the Mount Steel podcast. I just want to say thank you for everybody for taking the time to feel free to take a view, leave some comments or send some likes right here. I know we also got going on right too outside the Steelers right now, as well as in Pittsburgh. You also got some Pens playoff hockey right now coming up. Pittsburgh Penguins going to be the road team against New York Islanders. Wouldn't mind talking some hockey with you guys later down the road. We'll probably squeeze it in there, but let's see what happens down the road with that. But anyway, I don't know if anyone saw the draft hats at all. I already got mine over. I got the little 3930 stretch fit hat. So I should be having mine hopefully by the end of next week, but definitely more than likely I'll have it in time for the draft. I do want to say the draft hats look pretty cool this year. I mean, I know it had a lot of stuff with the flag and stuff. And I'm not going to lie, I was talking to my one cousin this morning when I looked at the draft hat that I ordered, the 3930. I feel like I'm getting something from NASCAR racing, I got a NASCAR racing hat. In a way. Not really, but but I definitely feel right here that it's going to be a fun draft. Steelers usually do well. Oh, one last thought real quick before we get out of here. Do you guys believe right now, seeing the way Antonio Brown was acting, and again, I know we had a lot on Ben Roethlisberger on his plate, the way he led his team, makes some people the wrong way. Do you honestly feel, can you honestly say that this was probably one of the most smartest trades by Kevin Colbert? Obviously, you don't want to dismantle your team. You don't want to part ways with guys who helped contribute a great deal to your success. But what do you think? Do you think this was ultimately best ideal situation for the Steelers? Or are you still a little worried later on in the future how it's going to affect future players wanting to come to the organization? All right. Well, I just want to say thank you once again. We're going to go ahead and close out officially. This is going to call it a day from the Men Steel podcast. And like I said, feel free to stay tuned with me. As soon as I get confirmation from Brian DiArlo, we'll do another podcast. The plan is we're going to try, I pitched to him about trying to do a follow-up from what we did about 2-3 weeks ago, have back on here, do another preview, trending storylines, and then we'll do one final follow-up the week of the draft. All right. I'm going to get out of here. And as I always leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Enjoy the weather, people.